All right, shalom everybody. Rob Vanoff here with TelosTorah. I wanted to do a short video today about, from our Torah portion, Genesis 18, verses 17 through 19. And so we're going to go through here in the Hebrew. I've got the NASB on the right here. And it's a beautiful passage. This is where Moses has insight into God's own heart and God's own intention. This is the Lord speaking to himself. And this is an example, too, of where the Hebrew verb amar, aleph mem resh, can mean speech or thought within one's own heart. So speaking to oneself as a way, or talking to oneself, which is idiom for thinking, right, or pondering. But it's speaking doesn't always have to be out loud. And so Genesis 18:17 says, Vadonai amar, and Adonai thought. That's how I translate this, or said to himself, even though himself is not here. Vadonai amar, hamechase ani me Avraham asher ani oseh. Ha-mechase, am I hiding from Abraham that which I am doing? So this is how we know he's not speaking to Abraham, right? If he was speaking to Abraham, it would say like Vayomer alav or something, and he said to him, or Vayomer Adonai el Avraham, and Adonai said to Abraham. We see that all over. Here, Vadonai amar, and the Lord is thinking, Hamechase ani me Avraham asher ani oseh. Am I hiding? Am I concealing from Abraham what I'm doing? So we know that God does conceal. He does mechase. He does conceal things, but not this. He says, I'm not concealing from Abraham what he is doing. Isn't it beautiful? And we have more. The thought continues. Va'avraham hayo yihyeh legoy gadol ve'atzum. Va'avraham hayo yihyeh. He will most assuredly become goy gadol ve'atzum, a great and mighty nation. Goy gadol ve'atzum. So gadol, great, atzum, mighty. And whenever we have haya le, so it's the lihyot le, means to become. Lihyot le, something, to become. Va'avraham hayu yihyeh. We have our infinitive absolute form followed by the imperfect. He will become, right? Most assuredly, he will become a great and mighty nation. Goy gadol va'atzum. This is sure. This isn't, this is why it's a promise. This is a promise that God makes. It's not based on anything Abraham is able to do. There's no universe where this does not happen. V'nivrechu vo kol goyei haaretz, and all the goyei haaretz, all the nations of the world, will be blessed in him. V'nivrechu vo, they will be blessed in him. Who? Kol goyei haaretz. So the whole point of making Avraham a goy, gadol ve'atzum, is that so kol goyei haaretz, it says v'nivrechu vo, they will be blessed in him. So even Avraham is a goy, right? Often people say, "Oh, the goyim, right? The goyim are the other nations, and Israel's not a goy." No, in the Torah, Israel is the emblematic goy, and here we see it. V'Avraham hayu yehyeh legoy gadol ve'atzum. Abraham will most assuredly become a great and mighty nation, v'nivrechu vo kol goyei haaretz, and they will be blessed in him. Who? Kol goyei haaretz, all the nations of the earth. That is a reiteration of the gospel promise. That's the gospel. This blessing will happen, God's saying. It will happen through Abraham, through the nation that I make of Abraham. And Kol Goyei Haaretz, all the nations will be blessed in him. And so the in him is a singular. In other words, the gospel promise at its core, expressed in the Abrahamic covenant, the promise that God made to Abraham, is that from his nation, from Abraham, will be a unifier, one in whom all these blessings, or all these nations will be blessed together. They are united together in a single blessing from God by God's sovereign decree. He continues, Ki yadativ lema'an asher yitzaveh et banav et beito acharav. For I have known him. Now you see the NSB says chosen him, but it's for I have known him. And that can mean chosen. It can mean I have elected him. Ki yedativ lema'an asher yitzaveh et banav et beito acharav. So that he will command his children and his house after him. Ve'et beito acharav. And then it says, V'shamu derech Adonai la'asot tzedakah u'mishpat. And they will guard the way of the Lord, to do tzedakah and mishpat, to do righteousness and justice. Again, this is a promise. They will guard the way of the Lord, to do tzedakah and mishpat, to do righteousness and justice in the earth. That's a promise. Isn't that awesome? Lema'an havi Adonai el Avraham et asher diber alav. So that the Lord brings upon Abraham et asher diber alav, that which he spoke concerning him. I love this passage. Again, this passage here, Genesis 18, 17 through 19, is Moshe is communicating by the Holy Spirit a glimpse of God's heart and his plan, that he is bringing this blessing into the world, and that this blessing is going to come through Abraham's seed, and it will unite all the nations of the world. This blessing, it will be a blessing from God, and that it is a sure thing. Verse 19, Ki yadativ, I have chosen him, or I have known him, I've chosen him, I've elected him, I've appointed him, in order that itzaveh et banav, he will command his sons and his house after him, and they will guard, they will protect derech Adonai, the way of the Lord, la'asot tzedakah u'mishpat, to do justice or righteousness, tzedakah and mishpat, and that the Lord will bring about everything he spoke to Abraham to do. That's why that's the confidence of the Apostle Paul with the gospel, taking the gospel to the nations. Because it doesn't matter if some hear and reject, or some hear and seem like they believe for a while, but then in difficulty they drop off. It doesn't matter to Paul. What matters is he knows that God is going to fulfill this covenant promise, and that Israel's job is to shine the light of the truth of this promise to the world, like a city set on a hill, that the Torah will go out from Jerusalem, and that the nations, those whom the Lord draws to himself, will hear and believe. They will hear and believe. And that is a wonderful promise. And it is a reiteration of the gospel in God's heart. It's the gospel at the core of God's heart that is communicated here. All right, friends. Shalom. Thanks for listening. I hope this was a blessing for you as you think about the Torah more broadly, or specifically this week's Torah portion.